So I just wanted to make a little quick story about how I even got to this point. So my original, like my Mark II, you know, this is a 96 Skyline. So I'm trying to do restoration. Basically, I wanted to restore the front of this car back to its, you know, 1996 glory. The problem is a lot of the stuff I needed is no longer made, and there's a few Japanese shops, websites I use to get parts from Japan, and all of them had basically the parts I needed here, which would be an upper core support, these headlight brackets, and then a lower core support, which were what was primarily damaged in this collision. So with the fenders and hood and bumper on, you couldn't really tell. I mean, the car was fine. It drove fine. It drove great. There was nothing. So, but me being the way I am with these old cars, I wanted to do my best and put some time into kind of restoring it. So I pulled all this metal back out. I used hammers and hand dollies. You know, I used a slide hammer to pull some of this damage out. But the problem I got to was this is the frame rail. So you could see it's pretty severely kinked right there. So this came off of here, you know. So I cut this frame rail off right behind the damage, and of course I had to mirror the other side. So my plan then was to get some sheet steel and rebuild these frames. This is 16 gauge, so, you know, kind of thick. This is 18 gauge, kind of thick too. In my mind, it's kind of thick, but compared to like pipe steel, this is super thin metal. So, but of course, the way it's shaped, it gives it strength. So I was just going to rebuild this, and then in Japan, they had a lower core support listed on their website, on a few websites. So I was like, you know what? I'll just rebuy this. Look at this thing. I mean, some of the damage, there's no way I could really repair that and have it structurally good again. So I was like, oh, good. They got some in Japan. I'll order it. Same with these headlight brackets. Oh, they got some in Japan. I'll order it. Even though I spent days pulling this metal, you could see this was all crunched in and crushed. I spent days hammering this back out, trying to get it back straight, you know, and I got it to where it kind of did its job again. You know, it was gonna be fine. Of course, I would have to paint it and stuff. The other side, this whole side was undamaged, so I only had to mirror this side. But basically, it got to the point where all the parts I thought I would be able to get from Japan were actually unavailable. Nissan doesn't make them anymore. So I was going to have to do some kind of tubing from these frame rail extensions I was going to make, and I was going to have to do a tube, or a round tube or square tube type of lower core support to mount these tension rod brackets too. Nissan has these tension rod brackets that the radiator sits in. They're mounted to the frame rail, and luckily my damage was before that, so I didn't have anything to worry about with where these things mount. This one was kind of bent in like this from the crash, but it's not hard to square it back up with this one. Just use a long square. And so I had to now get into like, okay, I got a tube. I have no choice. I'm going to have to weld some kind of tube here. And then I had this new headlight bracket. This was the only thing I could get from Japan. So I was like, cool, you know, I'll weld this baby on, get my little tube going, and then we'll be good to go. You know, everything's pretty much straight again. But this upper support, which I also straightened back out, you know, I got it pretty straight. It had a twist in it that annoyed the hell out of me. You can see it kind of right there. The aluminum or the steel, it just kind of flares up right there. And, you know, when I welded it back onto this headlight bracket, it was going to be fine because it goes across the top right here. And it would go across to the other side right there, and then basically your radiator sits, you know, behind all that, supporting it. So this whole thing is supported by those 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, upper, lower supports, and then the headlight brackets on both sides. So when I took this upper support off, because the little twist in the metal was annoying me, my original plan was to do a tube, round tube, upper support from here across to here, right? So I cut this headlight bracket off. I cut all the welds off, and I just removed it. But I was looking at this design, and I would end up having to do some kind of vertical supports to keep this bar supported. It's where the hood latch goes, the headlights mount to it, the radiator, the top of the radiator mounts to it, and the AC condenser mounts to it, right? So not a lot of weight, but it does support, you know, it kind of holds the whole front of the car together. So then I'm like, well, since I'm getting into tubing like that, why don't I just go ahead and make a whole tube front end? And since I would have to do some verticals coming off of this horizontal, I said, why don't I just make it stronger? And I'm going to cut this whole part of the upper chassis off, and I'm going to plate this, and basically I'm going to run 1.5 inch steel tube from here down to here, and it'll come down and meet the frame rail, right? So that's all the support I need for that. And then where this tube comes down and meets the frame rail, then from there across, I'm going to weld an upper support bar. So just one going across. So I'll have my horizontal, I'll have my vertical, I'll have a lot of beefed up steel coming off of these frame rails, and then I'll have a nice 2-inch pipe coming across here that the adjustable tension rod supports can mount to. So that's what it is. That's what I'm doing. Doing it all by myself here in the garage. Sometimes I jump on YouTube University. You know, I kind of know what I'm doing, but I don't at the same time. But, you know, the way to learn is figure it out as you go. So that's what I'm doing. But, yeah, I'll be here in my little cave until this is done.